All right, welcome back to the Bad MMA Math Breakdown. Now, if you were with us last week, you are very welcome. You obviously made a lot of money. If you were with us, though, for the 2 weeks before that, sorry, I guess. That's the way MMA betting goes. Anyway, we're back tonight with the breakdown for UFC Mexico City. And this one is actually very decent on paper. I'm pumped. I'm amped. I've done the ball test that I like to do, and there is some minor tingling going on down there. So all the signs are good. Anyway, Antoine, how are we doing today? What's good?
Man, I'm good. I'm good. Man, UFC 298 was nuts. I did not see that coming, and neither did the Volk, clearly.
No.
But the picks went well. We did a kind of a test of the pick league, me and CJ, and yeah, it was pretty cool. So, once we get that going, I think everybody will have a little bit of fun in there. But yeah, no, I'm good though. I'm ready to jump on this Mexico City stuff.
Excellent. Yeah, the fight pick league is something I think we're talking about maybe getting it up and running on Twitter. So if you are somebody that's active with us on Twitter, like I said, DM us. We're going to get a group going over the next couple of days, and then once we've got that established, off to the races we go. So this is actually quite a long card compared to the last one. So we're going to get straight into the action here. As always, like and subscribe to both of us makes a really big difference, apparently. Let's go. All right, so fight number one. We've got a featherweight scrap between Mohamed NAIMOV and Eric Silva. Again, for me, this was a case of who the fuck is that with Eric Silva. So I had to dig into the locker a little bit. Apparently quite a good jiu-jitsu practitioner. A bit more of a volume-based guy than someone that's going to knock your head off. I am going to pick NAIMOV. Mostly because, I think he has that KO power and frankly is a cheating scumbucket. So, and I don't mean it in like a funny, crafty way, like Tim Elliott does it at flyweight. No, I mean like, he does the nut shotting and the glove grabbing. He robbed my boy Nathaniel Wood. I think that fight was in Abu Dhabi, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Despite coming in there and looking way massive than him. And I do want him to get smashed. I just don't think it's going to happen this time. Silva's 36, coming into the UFC with only 10 professional fights. NAIMOV should be able to cheat and power his way to victory here. It says a lot that this is opening the card after he came off such a big win.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think NAIMOV is going to win. And he won my if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying award on my channel. Dude is foul, what he did to Wood in that fight. But in this particular fight, anytime you got a newcomer that's in his 30s that shows up, unless he's a star, normally he's being fed to the younger fighter, and that's exactly what's happening here. NAIMOV should walk away. If he doesn't get a finish, then that's not a successful outing. He needs to finish Eric Silva for sure. But I'm taking NAIMOV probably by some weird decision with a few fouls.
Yeah, that's a fair call, and I agree. I do think he needs to knock the guy out to right the wrongs of the past. Yeah. All right, so fight number two. We've got quite a few flyweight fights on this card actually, which I'm a big fan of. We've got Victor Altamirano versus Dos Santos. Now, as I've alluded to many times on this channel, I do have a little bit of a boner for flyweights. Not literally. Maybe a little bit. I think this is going to be a fun, technical, scrappy fight. And I'm actually going to take Felipe Dos Santos in this one. Mostly because I expect him to have the speed advantage. I think he's going to have more output. I like his clean and varied striking style. I do think, though, that Altamirano potentially has the wrestling advantage. and Dos Santos is quite weak with his defense, but I don't see many victories by submission on his record, which is a worry for me with him having this particular advantage. I can see this one potentially going the distance. Flyweights aren't really known for necessarily chinning each other. I think the Mexican crowd is going to be frustrated, though, in this one, watching their boy being slower to the punch. Again, betting perspective, I wouldn't bet on this, though, at minus 280, because I think with Dos Santos, that's a little bit too wide for me. And I think the crowd is obviously going to react to everything that Victor does. They're a crowd that turns up early for fights. They're usually there at the prelims. And that could affect the judging if it's somewhat close. I just think the Brazilian's younger, quicker on the feet, and I'm going to take him to win. He's got a great gym as well.
Yep. I am definitely high on Felipe Dos Santos. In another episode that we did on the Making the Walk channel, the UFC 300 guessing game, matchmaker game, Felipe Dos Santos against Victor Altamirano is a fight that I prefer to be moved to open the UFC 300 card, but nevertheless is here. I do think it's going to be an amazing scrap. Victor is hard to put away, and he's been in the game for a while. He's 10 years older than Felipe Dos Santos, so he's got a few more miles on his tires, but he has more experiences as well. So I think that's what's going to make the fight a lot more interesting than people may think going into it. I do favor Dos Santos because I do think that he's just a crisper fighter. Like you said, like you mentioned, his gym, they always are going to prepare their fighters. Anybody that walks in with blonde hair is going to be ready to go. So I definitely think that Dos Santos is going to walk away with a win. You know, I would expect a finish in the third round because I know that Victor's going to be coming forward and pressing the action. I think that he walks into something at the end, but it's going to be an amazing fight. And if they gave out performance of the night bonuses equally to fights earlier in the card as opposed to fights later in the card, this is definitely a fight that could be a fight of the night contender. But Dos Santos should walk out of there with a win. Yeah,
I agree with that. And again, it's way too good a fight, as you alluded to be buried this low on the prelims. But like I said, this is a very decent card.
Yep.
All right, fight number 3, bantamweight. I like that we're getting a lot of the smaller weight classes in this one. It's indicative of where the fights are taking place, I think. So we've got Rodriguez versus Bondar. Now, Dennis Bondar seems to have this very special talent for stealing defeat from the jaws of victory. So I am very worried about this pick. Apparently, I haven't learned from this, though, because I'm going to pick him again, I think. Now, he has taken like a little bit of time off. Hopefully, he's using that to work on himself. I think he's more well-rounded, and I think he's actually better than his last 2 losses suggest. And there were times when he was winning both fights. Rodriguez, I do think, is going to be more active. Like, I think the Lazy Boy nickname is supposed to be a little bit ironic. And what worries me about Bondar is he can be quite inactive rather, in his striking at times. But I do think he's going to have the significant strength advantage. Rodriguez just had a scrap with a journeyman that had an 11-11 record in what was a very close fight. And I don't like that. Again, the altitude, which I'm going to bring up a few times in this one, makes this a little bit risky. And again, we're talking about a hometown guy here. I would just be surprised if somebody that is as talented as Bondar goes 0-3 in the UFC. Because if he does, he's getting bounced. And I think he's going to have the extra motivation to maybe come out and do something special here. I'm doing this with minimal confidence. And I think actually my official pick, now that I'm thinking about it, might be for it to go over 2.5. I think I've managed to talk myself out of it. So that's where we are. A mid-fight flip, which always goes well for me. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm going to go Lazy Boy on this one. And that's with very minimal confidence as well. Like you mentioned, I don't like a situation where a person who has a dead even 500 record, and you really couldn't put him away, and the doctor had to stop it because of an ankle injury. Like, I'm not sure, you're cut out for this level, but we'll see. And maybe Bondar is not at this level either. Who knows? But and when his fight with Melvin Gordon, like he started off looking really good, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's a mental lapse. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm gonna take Rodriguez due to him being at home. That's really the only reason I'm taking him over Bondar. This could be a very boring fight.
Yeah, I think what you brought up there about, and again, being a home fighter makes a massive difference. It's not just the fact that we're talking about the altitude, which we are, but this is a very passionate fan base we're talking about. And this is a fan base that turns up early. And I just think that that's one thing that we often overlook when we're talking about judging. It can be very, very grossly effective when you've got every strike that a guy is landing being, hyped. So yeah, I think that could play into a factor, and I think that's a decent call. This is a very close fight, I think, one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next one up, we've got PUELLES versus ZIAM. Tricky one, because I don't really like either of these guys at all. So I'm going to try and keep things as simple and just go with my gut. When I think of PUELLES, all I can think about is him pissing about on the ground and getting mollywopped by Dan Hooker. That's all that comes to mind. And I kind of think of ZIAM as like to make an American reference here, like a dollar store hooker. Dan Hooker, not the other kind that you may think I'm talking about. Now, obviously, like, we don't have any access to IQ tests. So I'm going to base this pick on ZIAM not being like a bona fide brain donor. Like, all you have to do with PUELLES is not mess around with him on the ground. And I think like ZIAM is a half decent kickboxer. I think Killcliff is a great gym. I'd like to think that they made it clear with him, like, don't play footsie on the ground with this guy, and you should be fine. So I'm going to take ZIAM to play at kickboxing range, and I think he's going to be telling PUELLES to get up constantly when he tries to entice him into a ground battle. I can see it going that way. If you are considering picking PUELLES, just rewatch his Hooker fight. I'd rather be wrong than pick him and be right and pick him after that, if that makes sense. I was genuinely embarrassed for him watching that.
Yeah, no, it's a great assessment. I think that as long as ZIAM, his takedown defense holds up, and it's not like PUELLES has like this devastating double leg, or he's gonna run the pipe and take him down. Like, it's not like that. But once he does get you down there, he is a problem for sure. He's definitely a problem. And ZIAM has been susceptible to being finished on the ground. So he does have to keep it on the feet, but I think that he does that, and I think that he wins a decision. And this is probably the fight to go get something to drink. I don't think it's going to be that great, but I do think that when you come back from getting your drink, ZIAM will have his hand in the air.
Yeah, I can see it going that way too. This one should be open in the card, in my opinion.
It really should.
Or shouldn't be open at all. Would be even better.
Or it should be at
just scrap it.
Another organization.
Like, if somebody pulls out of this one, I'm not going to notice or care. Let's put it that way.
That's true.
Yeah. All right, so fight number 5. We're back at flyweight. And we've got CHAIREZ versus Lacerda. I don't really think I have to put too much thought into this one. I think CHAIREZ is going to win this fight. They fought before, as we know. This is technically a rematch. And CHAIREZ obviously had that fight won. Now, the ref obviously screwed this one up, called the fight off when CHAIREZ had Lacerda locked in. I think it was a rear naked choke. Mm-hmm. And when I was watching it, again, I had CHAIREZ on my ticket and got it struck off, which really annoyed me. The ref should have stuck to his guns. Even though he called the fight off a bit early, the fight was over. And I just think CHAIREZ looked a lot better throughout it. And Lacerda, I do like him somewhat. He does have a little bit of pop, but he gives up his back way too easily at times. And I think that CHAIREZ is going to get redemption for the win he should have had, but that maybe it goes a little bit longer than it did last time. So I'm taking CHAIREZ for the win. This one might end up being, if I'm right, it might end up being Mexico's first win on the card, which will be needed as, like I said, passionate people. And I don't want to see the cage get ripped down. Maybe I do a little bit.
It's hard to not go with CHAIREZ. He, like you said, he was winning that fight, and he pretty much won that fight. And Lacerda has no wins in the UFC. They've been very gracious to him to allow him the amount of times to fight in the UFC without a win. They normally don't do that, but I don't know who he knows, what pictures he has, but they've allowed him to come back for his 5th time to see if he can grab a win that he was losing, and I don't think it happens. I think this is the last time we see him in the UFC. And CHAIREZ, he better finish him. He hadn't finished before. Like he's got an opportunity to show that it was no fluke, it was no accident, and see if he can submit him again. So I think that I wouldn't call it a lock, but I'm pretty certain that he's going to win this fight.
It's the logical pick, based on what we've seen. It doesn't always go that way. Sometimes people adjust. And again, what you said about Lacerda being gifted chances, I think if he wasn't a flyweight contender, because outside the top 15, there's a like a dearth of talent there. There's not really. So I do think that has a lot to do with it. And to be fair to him, even though he keeps getting smashed out, he's quite exciting. So that might have something to do with it.
Can't say he's not excited.
Or the photos. Or he has the photos, which is also an option that I'm willing to explore. But yeah, I think CHAIREZ is going to get this done. Okay, so we've got another bantamweight scrap now between Aguilar and Mendonca. Yeah, this one, I'm not too sure about. I think I'm going to pick my first underdog of the card, though, and I'm going to go with Aguilar. I do think that Mendonca is the better striker, and he's got real power. And I mean, the reach he's got here is crazy. I just think that Aguilar, again, I don't want to, because I do believe that, positive discrimination is not necessarily a good thing, but Mexicans have chins, bro. And true. I think he's going to have such a strong advantage in the grappling. I mentioned the altitude earlier, and I think that's what's kind of swaying me in what I think is going to be a really, really close fight. I think if the fight was taking place anywhere else, I might have a different pick here. But it's not. And for me, I think for Mendonca to win, he has to spark him out. And I think Aguilar is pretty smart. He's defensively responsible. I just think he's going to grind it out with the wrestling and will have significant control time. So that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick, and it's a very logical pick. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say Mendonca. He does catch him in the second. He does have power, and he's been in there with some pretty high level fighters. I think he fought Nate Manes and Javid Basharat. So he's been in there with some pretty high level folks. And I think that the altitude will affect him in the third, but I think that it doesn't get there. I think that he finds a way to connect and get him out of there. So going Mendonca. I'm going out on a limb.
It's not a bad shout because like I said, Mendonca does have the reach. He does have the pop.
He almost has 10 inches of reach on this dude. Yeah.
He does. He just has weird long arms. I think the reach is more pronounced than people realize. So yeah, we're finally split on one. All right, so we're going to move on to the main card of the main event of the prelims, which is QUINONEZ versus Barcelos. Again, we've got a bantamweight one. Now this one is going to sound completely brain dead, because if you look at both their records, you know, Barcelos has lost 4 of his last 5, and QUINONEZ, on the other hand, has won 4 of his last 5, and is fighting on home soil. I think I'm going to take old man Barcelos. You know, he has had 4 losses, but they were all against high-level competition.
True.
And despite the skid, I actually think he's a very well-rounded and tough fighter. QUINONEZ, obviously, comparatively, is very young, mostly operates at range, but Barcelos has the reach advantage in this one, and I think he's going to be physically stronger. I think he's going to be more dangerous in the clinch and on top, and I think he's going to mix things up. I think he's going to create openings to take this fight to the ground. I think this will be scrappy. Over 2.5 wouldn't surprise me. I just think Barcelos is more well-rounded and experienced, so I'm taking Barcelos to win this one.
Yeah, I do think that Barcelos is definitely more experienced, more well-rounded. He's faced better competition. He's been in the fire, but I'm going to take Christian QUINONEZ. I think that they made this matchup for a reason. I think that they feel like QUINONEZ is somebody who could be a star for them in his role. I'll say a star in his role, not a star of the organization, but a star in his role. And so they've got him featured for a reason. And I think that he takes this opportunity to beat the person who doesn't have the ceiling that he does. And I think that it'll be probably a decision. I think he'll find a way to run away from him from a little bit, you know, to not allow Barcelos to get his hands on him. So he's going to have to be very technical, very tactical, listen to his corner, but I think he gets it done. I'm taking QUINONEZ.
Cool. I can see the wisdom in that one too. All right, so before we move on to the main card, as always, here is an overview of the prelim card. Now, we did do pretty well last week, so that does worry me a little bit. You know, swings and roundabouts and all that, you know. There aren't many household names on this early part of the card, but I love the matchups, and we should get some really good technical fights, and that is what it's all about. Okay, so main card, first fight on the card, lightweight. We've got Duncan versus TORREZ. This is a really nice one to open up the main card. For people who know about these two, this is a good matchup. Most people are probably expecting me to pick the British guy in this one, but nah, loyalty is not really a thing for me. You know, I'm not really, it's not really one of my highest priorities. I do think they're both powerful. I think they're both tough, and I expect this to be a potential fight at a night contender. TORREZ does have a number of concerning weaknesses. You know, namely, what bothers me about him is he keeps his chin high quite a lot, and he does have quite a poor tank later on in fights. On the other hand, I just think he's more vicious, and I do think he has a horrendously good chin. And I think Duncan fighting at altitude is a problem. I know he's talked a lot about he's been in this preparation tent for the altitude. I'm not sure how successful those things are, or how, you know, how much they work. So I think that his tank, which is usually good going into the later parts of fights, is going to be wiped out by the fact that he's not used to fighting this high up. I think they go for each other's heads. I think it ends up in the phone booth, and I think TORREZ is going to catch him, possibly with something flashy. I'm seeing a potential meme on the cards. I'm giving this the chin up arse, you know, the chin down arse up award for me in this one. I think I'm going for it in this one. I think that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going TORREZ on this one. Nothing against Duncan. I do think that Duncan's a good fighter. I think that where this fight is going to play a big part in it. I also think that TORREZ's fighting style, Duncan is going to play into TORREZ's hand as far as the fighting style. I think that Duncan is a very proud fighter, and he's going to say, you can't beat me at doing that, and oblige Torres and fight him where Torres wants to fight. It's a bad mistake when it comes to maintaining your cardio, fighting a smart fight. But I do think it is going to be exciting. I do think it's going to be, like you said, this is another potential fight of the night. But I think that Torres is definitely going to get the best of him in this fight, and especially if they end up fighting in a phone booth. So I would definitely take Torres as well.
Yeah, it's just that viciousness that's edging it for me. They both have very similar approaches to fights, but I just think Torres is better at it.
Yeah.
Duncan. Cool. All right, so next one up, we've got the ladies going at it. We've got Jarigui versus Sam Hughes. I'm taking Jarigui.
Simple.
You want more? You want more? You know, like I'm gonna just I'll briefly, just out of some respect. I think Sam Hughes is kind of tough, but I think she's being thrown in there as a sacrificial lamb to get the Mexican crowd jazzed. I know Jarigui got smacked out in her last fight, but she's got some good wins. She got sparked out. It was horrific. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think Hughes will try to grapple with her, but I don't think she will get her down and keep her down. The one thing that bothers me about this is, minus 475 for Jarigui kind of says it all. Number. I'm not putting that. That's big. I don't bet on that for any woman. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. This is my shit break fight, and this is where I top up my whiskey glass. That's all I got for you. Nothing technical to say. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Yasmin is going to win this fight. She's favored for a reason. Gomez did spark her ass out, but I don't think the Sam Hughes is that good of a fighter. I think that she's more of a regional champion than a UFC fighter, and that's okay, unless you're fighting in the UFC. So I mean, I'm not a regional champion, so that's great.
She probably beat me up.
but we're talking about the UFC, and I think that she's being fed to Yasmin here, just a little bit. I don't think Yasmin is like a world beater by any means. She's actually pretty small, but and she would be a candidate for the atomweight division that we keep on bringing up. But in this fight, I think she'll do just fine. I think she wins by decision, and this is a good time to go get nachos. If you need nachos, go get nachos.
This is a nacho night, by the way.
Yeah, it is
definitely a nacho night. Perfect. All right, now fight 3. We've got 6 fight main cards, so this will be at the midway point. We've got bantamweights again. Rosas Jr. versus TURCIOS. So obviously with Rosas Jr., the love child of Van der Ober and Gilbert Burns, versus TURCIOS. What a sexy man Rosas Jr. is. I just have to put that out there first. Gorgeous.
Oh my goodness.
I don't think this fight should be on the main card. I think the UFC is clearly intent to push Rosas Jr. through. I get that he's young, got a bit of a dynamic personality, and I think the choice of matchup that they've made kind of highlights this. I think TURCIOS is fine. Again, pretty scrappy dude, but he's not physically very strong. He doesn't carry any KO power. I think this is clearly a tailor-made matchup for what Rosas can bring to the table. And I mean, we know how green Rosas is. I mean, rightfully so. He's 19 years old. I just think he's going to be too powerful and too tenacious for Ricky, who has lost to worse guys than Rosas Jr. I don't think the odds are amazing, but I think Rosas is going to spend a lot of time on top just dominating. TURCIOS doesn't have the power to chin him and stands no chance in the grappling. So yeah, I think Rosas is going to spend the majority of this fight just molesting him on the ground. And I could see him getting a sub maybe. And this might not be like a bad parlay booster. I'm not betting this, but like, Rosas money line as a fluffer, maybe. I think he's good to go in this one.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is tailor-made for Rosas Jr. to start to build a win streak. This would be his second in a row. And fun fact, I think he's the fourth person on the card whose nickname has problem in it. So that indeed is a problem. They need to come up with some better nicknames. Everybody can't be a problem.
So that's not a disgrace, that is.
Yeah, that's a sad situation. Actually. Come on. But yeah, I mean, come on. Rosas Jr. needs to gather wins, and so this is another soul for him to gather, per UFC matchmakers. So he's gonna do his thing, and hopefully he gets a submission. He needs to get finishes to build up his profile. He needs finishes. He's at the beginning of the Paddy Pimblett hype train kit, so he needs to get finishes in order to build that hype train.
Yes. Yeah, I agree, and he's had a few close ones against people that he shouldn't have. I mean, the guy that he lost to, can't remember the name off the top of my head.
It was Christian Rodriguez. He fought him. He was a boy. Good. He was a boy, and he fought a man. That's the difference. Yeah. He was a teenager, and he fought a grown man. Good. He is really good. That was them getting carried away. Yeah, they were like, well, maybe 100%. He can do the John Jones. No. Nope. Every time they try to do that, they think you're not going to make another John Jones. There was only one.
Stop it. Yeah, I agree.
But he'll win this fight.
I think
though.
He'll be fine in this one. He'll be fine in this one. And I think they'll slow roll him from now on. I think it would be a slow progression up the rank. It won't be like a Makayev situation where we're like, number 8. It's like, no, none of that. None of that. All right, now this next one, feature fight. This is one I'm excited for this one. It's a lightweight scrap between ZELLHUBER and PRADO. Now again, casuals will not know much about these two, but you can see the excitement that we're both exuding here. This is a great matchup.
Jeez, yeah. I really wish this was on a pay-per-view card so people could really see how good these two dudes are.
They are.
Goodness.
They are. I do like PRADO. I think he's got real power in his hands. And I mean, the loss to Jamie Malarkey, who I think is terrible. You might not agree with me. I think he's rubbish. But it was short notice, so I can forgive it. And then he beat up a Zaitar, who I don't really rate much either. So you can kind of take that with a pinch of salt. He's also going up to lightweight, which is... we'll have to see how it goes when it goes. But he does cower. He does carry real power in his hands. The problem I have with PRADO is he's not really varied enough for me. He's basically like, he's a straight up bruiser. He's just going to go in, throw hands, and see how it goes. And ZELLHUBER, on the other hand, he's a lot more rangy, really good kickboxer. And, I think if he can be responsible in the first round, where PRADO's going to carry his biggest threat, I think he's then going to take over. And then I think he wins round 2 and round 3, assuming it goes that long, as PRADO starts to fade. I do think this is a risky one. They're both very young guys. And it's a fight that really makes sense considering where they both are. I just think that ZELLHUBER's more well-rounded and rangy. It's in his weight class, and he's at home. So I'm going to go with ZELLHUBER. Great fight.
Yeah. No, I think this is going to be an amazing fight. It's going to be a stepping stone for whoever wins. And when looking at this, what it reminded me of is if Yair Rodriguez fought Drew Dober. That's what it feels like. And
that is a brilliant comparison.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. And I think that whomever comes out of this with that win is going to be propelled to do some pretty amazing things in the division. That being said, I do think that ZELLHUBER is going to keep him away from him with his kicks, with his unpredictable just ways of attacking. He really does remind me of Yair, a bigger Yair. And I think that he gets it done. You know what? Like, I almost feel like one way or the other, this fight does not make it to the end. Like, somebody's going to get slept. Like, despite either ZELLHUBER's going to kick him into the third row, or PRADO is just going to, bury him into the ground with a punch. Like, these dudes, like, they are very violent. And that's why anybody that's a casual that doesn't know who these people are, like, this is the fight you do not get up for. You've got to watch this fight. Now, watch this should be boring, but you got to watch this fight.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This is the kind of fight that if you're an MMA fan and you've got a boxing fan who's really bloody annoying and you want to show him levels to this could be one that you could introduce them to. It will be good. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited for the fight. I don't really care who wins one way or another because I like both of them, but yeah, I think it's going to be fun. All right, so we're going to move on to the co-main event of the evening. Here we go. We've got Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega. Now, if this was a dick-slinging competition, I'd have to go with Sweet Boy Ortega. A disadvantage, unfortunately, for him does not apply here. Now, here's the thing for me. Ortega is obviously elite on the ground. He might be the best in the division, but I feel like Yair is no joke down there either, really. The issue for me in this one is when you look at the striking, that's where you see the real disparity here. It's literally like night and day. I think Yair is far superior in that realm, and Ortega's going to have to spend significant time playing there in order to take it to his realm. Now, I don't mind people picking Brian Ortega. The last fight ended in really unfortunate circumstances, so we don't really have much tape to go on in terms of how we can study this. Like, Yair got thrown down really nicely in that fight, but then it was actually his scramble that caused the injury. I think that Yair is going to piece him up when he's standing, and he's going to wear him out. Like, I think Ortega's very good, but he's also very hittable. And I can picture him, I can picture his face at the end of this one, just being battered. Very similar to how it was when he fought Max Holloway. I rate Yair so highly. And the reason why I feel like I may be picking this as well is I want him to launch himself into a fight with Topuria. I think Ortega's been very inactive. He's been rehabilitating an injury. So for all those reasons, I'm taking the Mexican. I'm taking Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. Ring rust, people say that it's not real. It's real, man. Like, if you haven't been doing something for a while and then you pick it back up in front of a ton of people, you're going to be timid. You're going to be reluctant. You're going to second guess everything that you're doing. It's real. It's real. As a matter of fact, I was watching an interview earlier and Floyd Mayweather was talking about when he was fighting Shane Mosley and he got hit the hardest that he's ever been hit. He had never been dropped to that point. And the reason that he got dropped is because he said he had been away from boxing for like 3 years. And that when he got hit with 8-ounce gloves, it was a shock to his system. I think we see a very similar thing here with Brian Ortega. He hasn't been in there. Yeah, sparring is one thing, but fighting for money in front of a whole bunch of people is totally different. And add in the fact that, not only has he been away, but he is of Mexican heritage as well. So that pour that little, piece on, and we got a nice recipe for Yair to walk away with a win. And I think that he uses his range. He uses his kicks. He's unpredictable. Just like I said about ZELLHUBER, Yair is going to do the same thing, but he's going to do it at a different level because he's better. And I think that he takes this win, and hopefully it's in impressive fashion. and he gets on the mic and he calls out Topuria. Like, that is the
Oh, I
perfect way
suspect
for
he
that
will.
to go. He hates that dude, and I mean, I'm here for it. Like, that's the fight that I want to see in
I
Spain.
want to see that.
When I did the Monday morning matchups, this is the fight that I brought up. Like, I want to see that fight. Yeah, I want to see that fight in Spain. Do you know how big that would be? That would be massive, massive, and it'll be a really great fight too.
I believe so. And I'm gonna try not to jinx it too much, but I think stylistically, we saw what happened with Jai Herbert and Topuria, and I know it's a big leap to take, but Jai Herbert is a less skilled kickboxing style guy, uses a lot of kicks, and Topuria struggled with that early on, and there is nobody better than that in the division, maybe even in the UFC, than Yair Rodriguez. So he's the only one I see as a potential banana skin right now, which is why I want to see it.
Yeah,
it's that fight. And they hate each other. Well, we know one of them definitely does.
Yeah,
so
for sure,
it makes for interesting spice. Okay, so with that being said, we're now on to the main event of the evening. We've got Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval, the Battle of the Brandons. I think this is a fantastic and worthy main event. I think there's a few side caveats to that, because I do think it's going to be a great fight. I do think it's going to be a real war. I have never picked against Brandon Moreno, for better or worse, and I'm not doing it now. Like, I think Moreno, and this is going to sound mad, I think Moreno is the best flyweight on the planet. Like, I know he's lost 3 times to Pantoja, but some guys just have that stylistic kryptonite. And that's just how it is. Like, this pick, I'm going to say this clearly as well, this pick is not a slight on Royval. He's in that upper echelon. I think he's literally in the top 3-4 fighters in flyweight, and you can literally interchange them on different days. Like, he's very, very dangerous. But I think what is making me more confident, he is taking this on short notice in Moreno's hometown, who I think has had more time to prepare, more time to work on things. If Royval won the fight, would I be surprised? I would not be. He's very high level. He's a well-rounded murderer. I just think Moreno is a dog, the likes of which we haven't really seen. I do think he's got the better stand-up, and I think he's going to put on a non-stop pace, and I like his chances on the ground as well. So I'm going to take Moreno to win this, and I think he's going to set up a 4th fight with the champion again at some point this year, especially since Manel broke all our hearts and shit the bed. I think Moreno's going to win. I think it's possibly going to be a decision in a high-level bout. And it wouldn't surprise me if Royval took a round or 2. But ultimately, I'm going with the former champion.
I have to go Moreno as well. And honestly, within that top, I would say I take Albazi out of it, but because I just don't think that he's as good. I really don't, at least not yet. But when I look at the top of the flyweight rankings, like, Pantoja, Moreno, Royval, Kopp, and Kaikar France, those are the guys to me, with apologies to Mateus
Probably
Nicolau.
In that order.
Yeah.
Close enough. I'd maybe squeak Nicolau in there as well. I think Nicolau's as good as
I think he's really good. I think he is really good. But I think that, like you said, any day, any one of these fighters could beat the other one. They're that close. But I do think the Moreno, I agree. I think he's the best out of the bunch. He's been through those tests, and really, Davidson Figueiredo did him a lot of favors. He made him better. He put him in this echelon to be considered elite of the elite. I think that Royval showed us a glaring hole in his game, his takedown defense. And I think that Moreno has rounded out his game to where takedowns are part of his game. We saw that when he fought Davison Figueiredo, and so I think that he uses that to keep Royval guessing, to keep Royval going backwards. Because when Royval is going forward, he's a major problem. When he was going forward against Pantoja, he was winning that fight. He was clearly winning that fight. So I think that Moreno will have him going backwards, have him guessing, have him reacting, and he, takes this fight. But I think it's going to be very, very entertaining, very fast paced, with two people who have great cardio. Hopefully the altitude doesn't affect Royval, but he trains in Colorado, so he should be good.
Yeah, I've never seen him gas in a fight, like not completely.
Never.
I've seen him slow down in parts, but he seems to get a second and third wind.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if Pantoja was fighting Moreno here, totally different story. Totally different fight. I think he gasses him, and I think he probably finishes him in the fourth. But Pantoja's the champ. They fight where he wants to fight, and that's not going to happen. But in this fight, Royval, he just runs into somebody who's just a little bit better. Moreno walks out of there with a win.
And we are talking
maybe they make their fight.
I think so, yeah. Flyweight's very, as you mentioned, very top heavy. But again, this is a great advert for the sport. If you want to see some technically skilled fighters in every area of the game, this is one to watch. And again, Royval does have that hole in the takedowns, but his ground game's good. So it's like, if he was fighting anybody else in the division other than Moreno and Pantoja, I would say the takedown defense isn't as much of a problem. But because Moreno is just so good there as well, I just think it's going to be technical, it's going to be fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a great main event, and I'm happy with seeing it again after what happened last time.
One question before we jump off. When it comes to the Moreno versus Royval and the Yair Rodriguez versus Ortega fight, do you think that they had the opportunity to flip those two? Do you think that it would be a better turnout if Yair and Ortega were the headliners? I do.
I'm honestly surprised that they didn't have Yair and Ortega as the main event, because the bigger weight classes tend to do better. But I think it shows how big Moreno is as a star in Mexico, and the UFC has worked diligently to cater to that market as much as possible, and he is bigger than Yair in Mexico, I would say. I would say it's like marginal to a certain extent, but he's had the belt twice. Like he's and the guy is I think the guy is popular outside of Mexico as well.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of him, I think that I get why they did it, but I think in terms of what the stakes are, not as many people are invested in flyweight as they are about featherweight, and certainly now with there being a new champion. I think if they'd known for sure that Topuria was going to win, it might have been different, because they probably looked at it as chances are Volkanovski's going to retain. It's Volkanovski, and we can't have him and Yair again. We can't do him and Brian again. So it's like, but now suddenly that fight takes on so much more significance now that we've got a new champion. But the good thing is, we didn't mention this, it's a 5-rounder. So they clearly know it's a 5, which we don't see that often. We very rarely see a co-main non-title fight that's a 5-rounder. And the main event's obviously a rough 5-rounder because it's the main event.
Yeah. I feel like you only get like co-main 5-rounders if Dustin Poirier or Nate Diaz are in it.
Nate Diaz.
It's the only way you get it.
That's right. So it shows that they may have struggled on who to put up there.
It's true.
But like it is, I think it was just a preemptive thing that had happened, and we get to see both of them in 5 rounds, and that's what matters. If Yair and Brian had been a 3-rounder, I think there would have been a lot more cause for, they screwed this up. The fact that we would get to see both, who cares really? I guess it matters to them. All right, so
somebody.
It doesn't matter to some people. They like being on that, but they're all going to be on the poster, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So here's an overview of the main card. Again, I don't really expect this card to do amazing numbers worldwide, but skill-wise and matchup-wise, this is easily the best fight night, of the year. Probably by default, we have been served utter garbage this year. Get yourself over to Making the Walk MMA if you are new or old here. Is there anything that you want to tell us up and coming, as we always do, to close these out? Anything for the fans to look out for, or the followers to look out for?
Check out that Monday morning matchups. I put one up yesterday with some pretty interesting fights, so check that out, and definitely follow on the socials. Got some more stuff that me and Frankie are cooking, so yeah, keep looking out for it.
And I'm very sorry to all of our followers for calling you fans. That was a total misstep. I take that back immediately. We have no fans. I'm just going to put that out there. But no, yeah, please do look out for that stuff. It's like I said, our channels are active, and I do think you get variety here, if nothing else. So like and subscribe. Make sure you turn those notifications on. So we'll sign off there. Looking forward to a great card. We'll be back for the reaction as always on the weekend. Take care of yourselves and have a great rest of the week.